Greetings and welcome to another episode of Q Points Podcast. I'm DJ Sir Daniel.
And my name is Jay Ray, sometimes known by my government as Johnny Ray Cornegay III. And Sir Daniel, we got like a record at this point. There's another John on this show.
Listen, I made up a very off-color joke about two Johns and a Daniel.
That was funny.
But
yes.
I'm not going to repeat that because we have guests. We have company, so I'm going to keep it nice and PG. Well, not PG. That's worse. I'm going to keep it nice and G over here while we have our guests. But I'm super excited about this next guest, J. Ray, because it's not too often that we've had an author on the show, right? We've had one author on before, and that was huge for us.
Yep.
And here we have another author, and not only is this gentleman an author, he's a producer, a crate digger. He DJs, the whole nine. He's a complete
journalist.
He's a journalist. He's a complete cultural cachet, if you know what I mean. So
cachet, I like it.
I love that, right? So I'm super excited for us to bring him on because he's got a new book that I'm sure the world is going to be talking about. And we here at Q Points have the exclusive.
Boom. So excited to have this conversation. So Q Points family, we are going to welcome John Morrison. John Morrison is a DJ, radio host, and music journalist from Philadelphia, right up the street from where I'm at. For over 25 years, he has worked as a writer covering local and global music scenes. Morrison got his start in the late 90s as a teenager writing for independent hip hop and punk zines. Shout out to all of the punk zines from back in the day. Since then, his work has appeared in the New York Times, Complex, NPR Music, Spin Magazine, Red Bull Music Academy, and more. An in-demand on-air personality, Morrison regularly appears on flagship NPR music programs like All Songs Considered and The World Cafe, as well as NPR's Tiny Desk Top Shelf series. As a DJ, Morrison's music making and performance practice has greatly informed his writing. Decades of digging in the crates for rare records to spin and sample has enhanced Morrison's expertise in music culture and his ability to write in-depth, expertly researched essays on music history. Morrison is also author of this beautiful book that we are going to be talking about today, Boyz II Men 40th Anniversary Celebration, a comprehensive book on the Philly R&B legends Boyz II Men. Published this past spring by Quarto Books and Epic Inc. Q Points family, we are so excited to welcome John Morrison up here. What's happening, man?
Hey, what's going on, y'all? Yeah, I'm chilling. Yeah, running around today. I'm glad to be here with y'all.
Awesome. I am super excited because as I was telling J. Ray, the way I found out about you was that I somehow came across an article you did on one Mike Maserati, or is it Maserati Mike?
Mike Maserati, yeah.
Yeah.
And, you know, I'm a DJ as well. And anytime I see anything that is about DJs, I typically read it. And I had never heard of Mr. Maserati. And just the facts that you laid out in the interview was just so mesmerizing and enlightening to me. And I was just like, yo, this is so dope. And the fact that you covered him and you gave him his shine, because there aren't many people like him on the scene. Like, I was like, yo, this dude is that could have been me in the early 80s if I was, if I was that age. So I just thought it was so dope. And I was like, J. Ray, you got to read this. And I followed you, started cyber stalking you and looking at all the stuff that you were into. And I was like, damn, he collects vinyl too? Like, man.
Yeah.
So so this is a big deal for us, and I'm super glad that you're here to discuss your new book. And just, jump it off by telling our listeners and viewers what exactly inspired you to pull together such an impressive celebration of one of the greatest vocal groups of all time.
Yeah. Well, the idea to write this book, it actually came from my wonderful editor at Epic Inc., Kara Donaldson. She approached me with the idea. We sat down, we talked about it. She's like, yo, I think we should work on a Boyz II Men book. I think it would be dope. And we sat down and we started having these conversations, and we're talking a lot about Boyz II Men. And for context, Kara is from Philly.
Okay.
So she reached out. We're sitting down. We're talking about Boyz II Men, but we're also connecting the dots between them and like this broader story about 90s pop culture. We're also talking about Gamble and Huff and Philly
Yes.
International and how all of that stuff, is really a continuum. Everybody who raps and sings from Philly got an uncle that played in
Yep.
MFSB, or you know what I mean, or somebody who knew Gamble and Huff back in the day. It's all connected throughout the generations. So Kara and I were having this conversation and having these series of conversations really, and I saw that we could write something that was really detailed about one of the greatest groups, like you said, like one of the greatest vocal groups of all time, but could also be a very a bigger story.
Yeah.
So that was the initial inspiration. She Kara is a genius. She came up with the idea. She thought, I would be the person to write it. I knew, having, being from Philly and having written about Philly's music history for so long, I knew at some point I was going to have to write something significant about Boyz II Men, because they're so important to the city's history. But she set it off. She hit me up and we started talking, and the ideas just started rolling. And I was like, yo, I think this is something we can do. I think it's something that we should do.
Yeah. Thank you so much for doing this. So one of the things I absolutely love about holding this is a collector's item. The way y'all have laid it out, including your wonderful writing, but also archival images. So it's very much like a coffee table book, like something you could in Black homes that you could sit on your table and pick it up, and at any point from this point into the infinite future, right, be able to see a moment in Black music history, and Philly history, like all in one. So just wanted to like big y'all up for the way this is put together.
Thank you.
You're welcome, man. So going back in time a little bit. So I'm from Chester, and I vividly remember when Motown Philly came out. So here's what I remember, which is really funny. I don't know if this is true or not, but here's what I remember. I was listening to Power 99 one day, and there was this new song that was coming on, right? I don't know if Michael Bivins may have happened to be on the radio or something. There was something that was making it an event.
Yeah.
And for whatever reason, I remembered the DJ calling the group Motown Philly.
Oh,
Maybe that was what I remembered. That probably is not what happened. Like they probably definitely said Boyz II Men, but in my head, I heard this new song by this group called Motown Philly that was also called Motown Philly, and none of that was weird to me. But I remember the song being banging, right? So this group, but I hadn't seen them yet until the music video. So we finally see the music video. They are doing like full out 8 counts. It's R&B, but it's a little bit of hip hop. They got a different, a look that's a little more school that fit me more, right? And so we're seeing them show up in the space as hip hop is getting darker, right? Black hoodies and jeans, and all of a sudden everybody is real hardcore when you talk about Black men, right? So I want to dig into that a little bit. When you think about Boyz II Men's emergence, particularly as representatives of like Black men and masculinity, young Black men, how do you see that? Like, what did they represent for Black men at that time?
Yeah, so for context, I was 10 years old when Motown Philly was released. So, yeah, very much.
I was about 13. I was about 13. Okay.
They're basically making me the old man on this podcast right now, but that's okay. That's okay. I was a freshman in high school when it came out, so that's okay.
And being old is a gift.
Yes.
It is.
You feel me?
Truly.
So
but continue,
when when that record came out, you think about a 10-year-old boy, a lot of my ideas of what a man should be or would be, you're starting to form that. I mean, it starts, from the cradle, but you starting to have like ideas and opinions about the world and about, your relationship to the people around you, your relationship to yourself. Your body is going to start changing. Some people's bodies change earlier, some later, but you know, Boys to Men and hip hop in a way were part of my story growing up, and Boys to Men in particular, if you think about that time period, 1991, when they came out, hip hop uh, was asserting itself as the primary center of gravity for Black American culture, right? And hip hop really presented masculinity, Black masculinity, in a different way than how it had shown up, for our parents' generation, our grandparents' generation. There's still uh, some stuff that hip hop inherited from those generations past, but hip hop kind of ramped up the aggression. It ramped up the confrontational energy, that Black men embodied under hip hop culture, and that was really like a far cry away from the R&B balladeers of the past, the way that Black men had presented themselves as men before. So to me, Boys to Men in a way kind of split the difference, right? Especially in those early days, like with how they presented themselves on that first album. You talked about, the clothing style. They had the prep style. They were clean cut. They even say it in Motown Philly, not too hard, not too soft.
Yep.
You know what I
Yep.
mean? These are guys who are talented singers in the old mold of Black male vocal groups. And, they were balladeers, they were vulnerable, and they were sensitive, just like the men that, our parents listened to back in the day. But we all also understood that these were young, cool guys who were absolutely of the hip hop generation. And in that way, not like, the men that we had listened to in the past. So that's really how I think about it. They split the difference and connected those different ways of presenting Black masculinity, pre hip hop and post hip hop. But, we understood where they were coming from because it was all Black, you know what I mean? And we, as Black folks, weren't so far gone or so,
Right.
Removed from the past that we didn't recognize ourselves in them. We saw it.
Right. And it's funny you bring that up. But that was actually, you kind of covered the next question. And I think part of what you're referring to was due to J Ran. We talked about this. Boyz II Men came right after the whole Milli Vanilli debacle.
Yeah. Yep.
And so
You had to sing.
Boyz II Men, you had
Yeah.
everybody that came out after that, like in Vogue, Boyz II Men, everybody was standing flat-footed and proving to the world that they can actually sing, singing a cappella at the drop of a hat. So you're absolutely correct. It was like at that point, Black America was like, nah, we need people to show and prove. So another point you made about still on the way Black masculinity and manhood is presented, it's so funny that even though Boyz II Men presented an alternative or even a throwback to what we were used to, and consider the fact that their mentors actually came from a group that fashioned themselves after those singing groups from the past, even though they were younger. But what the community still did, and I wonder if you talk about this in the book, what we still did is we kind of made these comparisons against their counterparts at the time, like a Jodeci, who were clearly more on the hip hop tip, who were clearly more swagged out, if you would, and I'm throwing up air quotes, and who were clearly like the look who fashioned the bad boys of R&B. So it's like even though we were presented with both sides, the community was almost left picking sides. What do you think about that?
Yeah. No, absolutely. And growing up, I was probably more of a Jodeci guy than a Boyz II
Mm,
Men guy. You know what I mean? Just
yeah.
because of how they presented that hip hop thing. I was young and, you know, had a lot of energy and saw myself like, oh, I could be not like Jodeci when I grow up, but it's like, oh, these guys remind me of like older guys in my neighborhood, more so than the clean cut preppy thing that Boyz II Men were presenting. But is that was an interesting time, like the late '80s all the way through the '90s, or through the early '90s, were an interesting time in Black music because, not to be dramatic, but it really was uh, a turning point, a
Mhm.
struggle for what was going to be the primary mode of expression for young Black people musically. And whatever young Black people's primary mode of expression is America's primary mode of expression. So
Exactly.
you think about how hip hop emerged and really overtook R&B in a way. It's like the foreground voice and expression for Black people and young Black people in America. America at large moved along with that
Hmm.
because, as we've seen with doo-wop, jazz, rock and roll, everything else that came around that time, and or everything that came before hip hop, once young Black people in America decide this is the wave, America decides eventually they'll catch up or try to catch up and decide that it is going to be the wave. So the way that uh groups like Boyz II Men kind of bridge that gap between R&B and hip hop were important because you could create something new, and you could lean in on this new, I see in quotes, hip hop energy, but it still retained a lot of the good stuff from the past. So it wasn't just, a stark break from the past, which I think that young people's desire is to innovate. Young people's desire is to push against the old ways and the old norms and create something new. And I think that that's something that we collectively as a society should encourage.
Hmm.
But I think that it's important that some of the old stuff comes along too. So I think that Boyz II Men was a fine representative for Black music because they did that. They bridged both of them.
Yeah. Yo, okay, so we are going to talk about that last piece a little bit in a second, but a memory has unlocked too. Um because one of the things I think it's easy to remember Boys to Men for kind of like those big ballads like End of the Road and I'll Make Love to You, etc., etc. But along those same lines, Boys to Men was also making like these dope slow jams, and we love slow jams on Q Points, and see it as really important to just like Black music culture. So it just reminded me that on that first album, and I completely forgot about this, my favorite joint was like that remix. That joint was
Mhm.
crazy. I was
Yeah.
like, of all the joints, like that remix went off to me. And was just and put them in kind of a different sort of class, because I think we were seeing them in kind of this one mode, but that song kind of gave them that slow jam thing that they also, of course, are experts at because they're a brilliant vocal group.
They turned up the sexuality on their part because
Yeah.
I think J Ray, what you're referring to, and well, I'll say this: what I'm thinking is that I remember that Boyz to Men, they were definitely the guys that you could bring home to mom,
Yes.
and and you could sing those songs, the whole family could sing along, whereas their counterparts were doing other things and being a little more implicit
Hmm.
about sex and sexuality, which is fine.
Hmm.
That's
There was
another
room.
point, is there was room
There was
for it
room for
all,
all of it
John.
then.
There was
For sure.
room for it
room.
all
For
at that
sure.
time, and I don't understand. I'm baffled why people feel like they have to go to one extreme and not trying to find a balance today, because I really do believe that's what we're missing, is that balance. And then also and technically, music wise, what I realized is that so Motown Philly dropped, and I think that was the most high energy song that Boyz II Men has ever put out. They're singing over samples and whatnot.
Yeah.
I don't think they didn't do anything like that after that. Did anybody notice that, or did I miss anything?
Not really. I
Not
know
really.
the song when they would do it live around that time, they would kind of ramp the energy up. It would reach those same levels of energy as Boyz II Men. The studio version, not so much. But yeah, I honestly, and I've said this to folks before, talking about this book, I wish that I would say wish I would have been interested in Boyz II Men leaning a little bit more into hip hop. You know what I mean? Like as their career progressed. There's a record on DJ Jazzy Jeff's album, The Magnificent, where Sean from Boyz II Men does a guest spot. It's a record called How I Do.
Yep.
To this day,
is dope.
I play that record out. I literally just had a gig at the Penn Museum on Saturday, and I was cutting that record up. You know what I mean? And I can't think of whose show I was on. I was talking about the book, but I said that that song makes me think like, oh, what would Boyz II Men have sounded like if they would have got like Pete Rock to do some production at some point, or Dilla, rest in peace, to get some production. That How I Do record is crazy because it's got that Pete Rock, Dilla, Jazzy Jeff bounce to it. But then Sean is throwing like the Boyz II Men harmonies. That would have been a beautiful combination. But you know, they leaned more towards the ballad stuff. And that was for them. You could tell that was what they really wanted to do. But the hip hop head in me is like, man, if they would have just gave us like one, you know what I mean? It would have been crazy.
Now, I will say this. I'm sorry, J. Ray. As somebody that's been living in Atlanta for a long time, I will say that the DJs had absolutely no problem taking those slow acapellas, the slow jams, like the and putting it over a booty shake, a bass beat. And it goes off. I think that might have been the closest thing that we could have gotten to, to something with a harder edge, is what you're referring to. Down here, like the King Edward J's and the DJ JCs had no problem taking those acapellas and putting them on a dope bass beat. So and that makes me think that they could have really done something like you were saying with hip hop producers. Imagine. Because Marley Marl was really big at that time, because En Vogue has Marley Marl remixes. Imagine if they had that.
Yeah. And this also makes me think of house too. They would have been perfect over some like crazy house production, and sending the dance floor up. But to this point, I think what we're really also kind of talking about is there are traditions that Boyz II Men walked in. Right. And they knew what traditions they were walking in. Right. So one of the things that Sir Daniel and I talk about on this show a lot, John, is we talk about like recipes and one of the reasons Q Points exists is to, one, share these histories, but preserve some of these recipes and things that we learn, because it's important to our musical history and our ability to kind of just create dope stuff. Right. But when you look at the charts, and it's crazy today, because when we were up, groups were just like a regular thing. Like it was just part of it. Like in fact, most of the people that we love started in a group and then they probably went solo later. And it worked, but a lot of times for most of them it didn't. So they ended up back in the group, right? But to that point, particularly vocal groups in Black music tradition, and Philly had like just so many classic vocal groups, but we just don't have that today. What, from your perspective, when you get to muse on this, what are we losing culturally by not having this? And what do you think the role is that type of synergy in music kind of played, and we really don't have it today?
Yeah. I think about this a lot, and I've thought about it a lot while writing this book and researching it, and it makes me sad, and it's kind of disheartening to see that vocal groups have declined so sharply in American popular music in general, but specifically thinking about in Black popular music. You know what I mean? The only people with vocal groups are like the J-pop and the K-pop groups.
Yep.
You know what I mean?
Yep.
Nobody else wants to sing together. But I think that our music is poorer for that. You know what I mean? I think that there's a richness and something that's deeply human about us singing together. You know what I mean? I grew up in the church, and my earliest musical memories, I was on a podcast that was more like rock oriented. You know, we were talking earlier about y'all being on like a rock podcast. That's why I bring it up. But I was on one that was more rock oriented, and the host asked me, you know, what was some of your first? Well, what was your first musical experience? And I was like, there's no music before the church for me. You know what I mean? Like no hip hop, nothing. You know what I mean? And my family was not like, you know, band pop music. We weren't with that kind of family. It's just my earliest memories, period, involve the church, and it involves singing together with my family and with my community. And I think that 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 practice enriches our music. It's part of, you know, music itself on a human level. You know what I mean? One person beats the drum, another person makes a noise. You know what I mean? And we communicate and we talking together. You know, and if you look at Boyz II Men specifically, as great a singers as Sean, Wanye, Mike, and Nate are individually, the act of them physically singing together created something greater than the sum of its parts.
Yep.
You know what I mean? They talk about it a lot where when they sing, you know, people ask them questions about the harmonies and stuff. And, you know, if you sang together with somebody who has an ear, you yourself, you can lock in. It almost it elevates you. You know what I mean? Like it's something physical and spiritual that happens when you sing in harmony in concert together. Now you think about let me just say this. You think about our music now, and our music lacks that.
Yes.
Human beings singing together. You know what I mean? We still get talented artists and songwriters and musicians and producers and all of that stuff, but we're missing the act of singing together in these records that are playing on the radio, that are playing in people's Spotify.
Yep.
That part is missing something, and like I said, our music is poorer because we don't have that.
So I'm gonna let Sir Daniel go, but we're doing a mind meld right now because I think I know exactly where you're going. Go ahead,
John. Right now, I'm actually shaking because Jay and I have had these conversations ad nauseum about the power of harmony, of harmonizing, and voices coming together. And I don't know if you know this, in writing your book, it's so timely that you're writing about Boyz II Men because you said something very important. You said it's almost like we don't like each other enough anymore to form these groups.
Yep.
And what I'm seeing is what your book is representing, or it is chronicling the relationships and the well-being of Black men, period, because we are in the middle of the eye of a storm right now, where Black men are searching for identity. We are, for some, they are fighting for supremacy amongst us. People are looking for leadership. They're looking to be leaders. You know, there are podcasts that are tearing us apart, and then we got podcasts that are fighting against that. And I can't think of anything that kind of mirrors what's going on in the Black community right now than what this book is talking about, or is referring to in a very special way. Like like the decline of male singing groups in particular, and men singing about being tender and
Yes.
showing emotions. The lack of that right now is, we can kind of trace it back to probably the last Boyz II Men album, studio album. Like something abrupt happened in our community amongst us. And I think when we talk about, for Black men today, what lessons or inspirations could we draw from Boyz II Men in how we approach our emotional maturity, our emotional well-being, and relationships, how we relate to one another, whether they be platonic or romantic. But what lessons can we draw from Boyz II Men, in this moment?
Yeah. I think honestly, the primary mission for Black men today, especially cishet Black men, but for all of us, really, uh, our primary mission should be to fight as hard as we can to fully embody our humanity. So I'm talking intelligence,
Yes.
creativity, sensitivity, vulnerability, as you mentioned, all of it. Patriarchy cuts us off from so many different like aspects of ourselves. We end up moving through the world as this, you know, ugly version of ourselves, or an
A parody.
unrealized,
Yeah.
yeah, like an unrealized version of ourselves, what we could be. We end up living in denial of our potential, and we don't even know it. You know what I mean? We think, oh, I'm being a man, or I'm doing it the right way. you know I say to people, from the my father was killed when I was 9 years old. I didn't cry from then until I was 27.
Hmm.
Like, I couldn't. And believe you me, plenty of things I saw, did, and was around should have made me cry, but I couldn't.
Hmm.
You know what I mean? I couldn't do it. We have to let that shit go. You know what I'm saying? And music is important. Music and many other things, my relationships, meditation, a lot of things opened me up as a human being and made me a fuller person. Listening to Boys to Men won't fix any of that stuff. But I think that there's a vulnerability in these songs that can open men up, open human beings up. You know what I mean? If we sit and listen to this music, uh, and take in the emotions that they're putting on these records with sincerity, not and these niggas, they sipping, or they they don't clown it. You know what I mean? None of that. Just sit with the music and listen with sincerity and openness. I think that it can open us up a little bit, and it can help us train ourselves to be more open human beings, fuller versions of ourselves. You know what I mean? And that's what music is. Like, it adds color and nuance to our lives as human beings. And I think that as Black men specifically, we have so much that we can give to the world. We have so much that we've given to the world. You
Yes.
know what I mean? Already. In order to continue to do that, we have to fight against all of this other stuff that's telling us to be lesser versions of ourselves, that's telling us to not take responsibility for our own well-being and for our community's well-being. This stuff that's telling us to, hate women. You know what I mean? Like, we in order to be our best selves, we have to reject that shit. That's why, you know, I'm not out here, you know, beating drums, but I don't allow none of that stuff around me. You know
Yes.
what I mean?
Hmm.
Because I know that stuff is a lower version of who we can be. And I love Black men. And I want us to be, and I want it for myself. You know what I mean? I want us all to be our best selves. I think that music can help that. I think that good songs about loving sincerely and being vulnerable and baby, I messed up, but I'm sorry.
Yeah.
How many people we see on Twitter that say they partner can't say they sorry? The music, I would like to think taught us how to do that.
It gave us language. The feeling like you would listen to a song and be like, oh, that's what that is. Remember back in the day, y'all, as a digression, thank you so much for that, John. But remember back in the day, there would be on like sitcoms where the young man would like find something in a song and then he would like go to the girl and he'd be like, is that a lyric? And he'd be like, yes.
This is how I feel.
Better. I could do you one better, and I hope this is not cringe because it, remember at the end, like sometimes during the episode of the Cosby Show, and what would Heathcliff do if there was some
needle?
He would reach into that stack.
Yep.
Pull out a song. Claire would be sitting there, if she was annoyed, she'd be sitting there with her hand, her head in her hand, and he would play that record. He would either start lip syncing or just doing something to, console her, rub her feet, whatever, and use that song to get back and say, hey, we still good. I love you. I'm sorry. Whatever it is that he was feeling at the time. And it would be the perfect way to end. It just showed us that there's a connection. There's language out there that we can use. If you can't come up with it yourself, maybe this song will do it for you. It was literally done in front of us. It was literally modeled for us to do. But now, I feel bad for a lot of these young men that don't have that.
Yeah, man. So, John, you have created this wonderful work. For those folks that might say, I know everything about Boyz II Men. I've seen all the documentaries. I know all the things.
I still got a bow tie.
I still got a bow tie, right? What would surprise them, you think, about, well, one, why should they pick this book up? And what would surprise them if they picked this book up, from your perspective?
I think that the thing that would most surprise people, and this is feedback that I've been getting from folks as they've been like getting their early copies and reading through it. I think that what would surprise people, you not only do you get a detailed account of Boyz II Men as a group, you get a wide range of musical connections and cultural connections that the book draws. You know what I mean? You may know Boyz II Men, but do you know doo-wop? You know what I mean? You may know Boyz II Men, but do you know how Gamble Huff started? Do you know how the Backstreet Boys or NSYNC started? You know what I mean? I write about that. And at one point, my partner, she loves NSYNC. So I was working on this book and I was like, babe, you'd be happy with this chapter that I'm working on. She's like, why? I was like, I'm writing like a whole history of NSYNC. You know what I'm saying? Chris used to be in a doo-wop band called the Hollywood High Tones. You know what I mean? Do you know that? You know what I'm saying? Yeah. So there's, I can go on. You know what I mean? Boyz II Men had a studio right outside of Philly, and before Britney Spears had a record deal, very young, pre-fame Britney Spears, she recorded an entire unreleased album with Vivian Green writing the songs in Boyz II Men's studio. And that studio...
I'm sorry.
That studio... DJ Sir Daniel's Britney Spears impression.
Before studio was a studio, it was a Civil War munitions manufacturer, that building, before Boyz II Men took it over. You know what I mean? So you may know Boyz II Men, you know all the songs, you got the albums. This is a dense, for a coffee table book, this is a dense history of Black music, popular music. You're going to get something out of it.
John, do you know if any of the members of Boyz II Men have gotten their hands on the book yet? Or
I know that they that they know about it.
Okay.
I don't know that they've read it, you know what I mean, or checked it out. And I didn't even know that they knew that this existed because, for full disclosure, this is a work of journalism. It's a reporting. I didn't like collaborate with them on this book.
Right.
But we did the book record release, the book, I'm in the album mode.
Right.
We
Okay,
did the book release party at 48 Record Bar in Old City here in Philly. And I'm on stage and I'm talking and somebody asked me like, "Oh, do they know about the book or have they read it?" And I was like, "I have no idea, blah, 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 blah." And Kara Donaldson, my editor, she was in the audience and she kind of yelled out like, she was like, "They know about it." You know what I mean? So apparently somebody from their team or one of them hit up the publisher on some like, "Hey, what is this thing? Like what's going on? We're hearing about this book." So they know it exists. I'm a reporter. I write the stories. So it's not, it would be lovely if they read it and was like, "Oh, this is dope." But that's not really what this is for.
And we need journalists like yourself. We need folks who love music like yourself to continue to do the work that you're doing, John. Like I said, this is absolute. Look at this. This thing is beautiful, y'all. Do you see this?
Ain't that pretty?
It's pretty, and it's. I seriously, for Black folks, this definitely needs for every household, but definitely if you love Black music and R&B music, this is one of the books that needs to be in your house. And John, thank you so much for bringing this, man, to the world. This is a beautiful, beautiful volume, and thank y'all. So y'all have tuned in to this episode of Q Points. If you can see our faces and hear our voices, subscribe wherever you are.
And J-Ray, we're always talking about having physical media and how important that is specifically to the Black community, to Black culture and Black art. And so, John, please take this moment to invite our Q Points listeners and viewers to order your book and to follow you and your future endeavors. How do we get in contact with you? How do we get this book?
Yeah. You can find the book everywhere. If Amazon or Walmart is your thing, you can find it there. There's a host of independent bookshops all around the country who are carrying it. Harriet's here in Philadelphia, they have copies of it. So yeah, you can find the book anywhere you find books, and you can find me on social media. I'm really honestly only on Instagram and Twitter. I don't really be on like the other ones, but at JOHN_Liberator. You can find me everywhere. If you follow me on Instagram, it's going to be a lot of, "Oh, hey, y'all, I'm at a DJ gig," or "Hey, I just got this record," or "Hey, me and my boo, we out on date night." You know what I mean? It's my Instagram is very much like a boring old head Instagram. But Twitter, occasionally I do historical threads for things that I'm researching. Like I did an interview with Marley Marl last year, maybe like a few months ago. But basically, Marley Marl, influential hip hop producer, but I knew that he had a background in disco. And I knew that he had worked with like Prelude and like a lot of the disco labels back in the day when he was young and starting out. So I interviewed him and I just talked to him about disco records, like playing disco in the park, producing, early dance records, all this different stuff. So I went on Twitter and just did a thread about our conversation, but also about disco, boogie. I don't really like the term boogie, but you know what I mean? Just really breaking it down, kind of like blowing up, these little like historical bits and threading them throughout. So if you want to see me on date night and going through records, follow me on Instagram. If you want detailed music history, follow me on Twitter.
Boom. Oh my God, man. That is dope. Make sure y'all follow John. Make sure that y'all get this book. This is a great gift too. So birthdays, holidays, whatever you will. Like you definitely do that for the music heads in your life. But
my mom bought a stack of them.
Listen, shout out to your mom.
She just handed them out.
That's what we need.
That's what she's supposed to do. You know what I'm saying?
And I told her,
love
I
that.
said, I'll give you copies. She said, no.
No. Mom knows the deal. I gotta buy it. Yo,
and
John,
she's your biggest salesperson too. Like,
yep. And she's telling she is
sure.
absolutely everybody. If she goes to church, they all know. If she shop at the local the store, they all know.
For sure. For sure.
John Morrison, thank you so much for being here with us on Q Points. We appreciate you, brother, and congratulations again on this book. Yeah. For all of y'all tuning in, if you can see our faces and hear our voices, make sure that you hit the subscribe button for Q Points. Share the show with your friends, family, colleagues. If you love the show, chances are they will love the show as well. Visit our website at qpoints.com. Over there, you can check out the entire archive of Q Points episodes, and there are a ton of them for you to check out. Visit our store at store.qpoints.com, and if you want a little extra Q Points content, you can visit Q Points Magazine, our digital publication, where you get some content that's show related, but then we just got stuff over there that we just want to talk about and write about. So we do that over on Q Points Magazine. We appreciate y'all. We love y'all.
Absolutely. So, J. Ray, what do I always say? In this life, you have an opportunity. You can either pick up the needle or you can let the record play. I'm DJ Sir Daniel.
I'm J. Ray, y'all. That is John Morrison.
That's John Morrison. And this is Q Points Podcast, dropping the needle on Black music history. We will see you on the next go round. Peace.
Peace, y'all.